The sun shined brightly over the small town of Greenwood. Birds chirped gently, and a soft wind carried the scent of blooming roses. Inside St. Mary's Church, the air buzzed with excitement. White flowers hung from every corner. Golden ribbons lined the pews. A soft piano played in the background, and the guests filled every seat, whispering and smiling. It was a beautiful day for a wedding. The groom, Mr. Daniel Carter, stood proudly at the altar. He wore a crisp black suit and polished shoes. His smile was wide, and his eyes were full of hope. He was 42 years old, a successful architect, and after many years of raising his son alone, he had finally found love again. Everyone looked at him with joy, everyone except his 12-year-old son, Michael. Michael sat in the front row wearing a small gray suit. His hands were folded in his lap, and his eyes were fixed on the grand wooden doors at the back of the church. His face didn't smile, his lips didn't move, but his eyes, they were filled with something strange. Worry? Fear? No one noticed. Everyone thought he was just nervous, but Michael wasn't nervous. He was thinking and watching. A perfect wedding, almost today's. "The day," whispered Aunt Lizzie, Daniel's sister, who sat beside Michael. "Your dad's finally found happiness again." Michael gave a small nod, but he said nothing. Lizzie looked down at him. "Aren't you excited? You'll finally have a stepmother? Miss Evelyn is so kind." Michael turned his head slightly toward her. His voice was soft. "Yeah, she's Dot. Nice." But Don't Nice didn't believe that. Not anymore. The bride's arrival suddenly, the piano music changed, became slower, softer, more magical. Everyone stood up and turned toward the back of the church. The grand doors slowly opened, and there she was, Evelyn Rose. She stood in a flowing white gown, her dark hair in curls, a silver tiara resting on her head. She smiled as she stepped forward. The guests gasped. She looked like a queen. Daniel's face lit up when he saw her. His eyes glistened with tears. He looked truly in love. But Michael, he just stared. His eyes never left her. And his hands. They slowly clenched into fists. Something doesn't feel right. Michael had once liked Evelyn. When she first came into their lives, she had brought gifts, hugs, and cookies. She had laughed at his jokes. She had even helped him with homework. But then things changed. Little things. Things adults didn't notice. But Michael did. The way Evelyn's smile faded when his father left the room. The way she looked at him cold, sharp when no one else was watching. The way she always seemed to ask him strange questions. Like, "Do you ever tell secrets to your dad?" Or, "What does your father keep in his office drawer?" Michael hadn't thought much of it at first. But over time he started. Paying attention, and what he found shook him. The hidden journal 2 nights ago. Michael had been looking for his sketchbook in the guest bedroom, the room where Evelyn sometimes stayed before she moved in. While checking the drawer, he had found a small black notebook hidden under. Old scarves. It wasn't a diary. It was more like a log, a list of names, numbers, meetings, places. One page said, "Meet with Alan. Confirm insurance papers. Daniel's son, watch him closely. Keep fake ID hidden." Michael didn't understand everything, but he knew it wasn't good. Why would someone write about watching him? Why was she meeting someone named Alan and talking about insurance? He quickly took photos with his phone and closed the drawer. Since that day, Michael couldn't sleep. Music slows. Evelyn reached the altar. The music slowed to a stop. Everyone sat down again. The priest began to speak. "Dear friends, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Daniel Carter and Evelyn Rose." Daniel held Evelyn's hands. Evelyn smiled sweetly. Michael's heart pounded. He looked around. No one else seemed worried. No one else saw what he saw, but Michael knew something was wrong. Very wrong. Why was she really here? Michael had tried to tell his dad the night before, but Daniel had laughed it off. "Come on, buddy," Daniel had said. "You're just nervous. Evelyn loves us both." "But I saw her notebook," Michael had whispered. Daniel sighed. "Son," she said, "it's just her old planner from work." Michael had wanted to say more, but he had seen how happy his father was, and so he stayed silent. But now he knew he couldn't stay quiet any longer. The moment before the vows, the priest looked at Daniel. "Do you, Daniel Carter, take Evelyn Rose to be your lawful wedded wife?" Daniel smiled. "I do." The priest turned to Evelyn. "Do you, Evelyn Rose, take Daniel Carter to be your lawful wedded husband?" There was a pause, and then Michael stood up. A silence falls every head. Turned, gasps echoed through the church. Michael walked slowly up the aisle, step by step. His eyes locked on Evelyn's face. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. "Dad," he said, loud and clear. "I need to talk to you."
Now, Daniel looked confused. "Michael, what? It's important," the boy said. "Please." The priest stepped back. The guests looked at each other. Daniel let go
of Evelyn's hand and bent down to his son. "What is it?" he whispered. Michael leaned in, and then he whispered something into his father's ear. Daniel's face froze, his smile disappeared, and his eyes filled with shock. The bride's smile fades. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice sweet but sharp. Daniel didn't answer. He looked at his son again. "Are you sure?" Michael nodded. Without another word, Daniel stood up straight and looked directly at Evelyn. The whole church was silent. Then, slowly, Daniel took a step back from the altar, another step and another. The bride's smile was completely gone now. Previously, Michael, the groom's son, walked up to the altar during his father's wedding. He whispered something in his dad's ear that made Daniel step away from the bride, Evelyn. The wedding paused. The room fell into silence. Now all eyes were on Michael. Everyone's watching. The church was silent. Not even the sound of breathing could be heard. Daniel stood in the center, confused and pale. Evelyn stood frozen, her hands shaking. "Dan." Michael stood quietly, still looking straight at her. "What's happening?" whispered someone from the back. A woman held her child closer. A man adjusted his glasses, whispering to his wife. People looked at each other, trying to guess what was going on, but Michael didn't look at anyone. His eyes stayed fixed on her, the bride. "The groom demands the truth." Daniel turned to Evelyn. His voice was low, but firm. "Evelyn," he said, "I need to ask you something." She blinked quickly. "What is it?" He pointed toward the guests. "Come with me. Just for a moment. In private." Evelyn hesitated. Her smile returned, but it looked fake now. "Daniel, can't it wait?" He shook his head. "No, it can't." Then he looked at the priest. "Please excuse us." The priest nodded. Everyone stepped aside as Daniel and Evelyn walked down the aisle toward a side room near the back of the church. But Michael didn't sit down. He followed them. In the side room, Daniel closed the door behind them. The side room was quiet, filled with wedding decorations and flower petals. A table stood in the middle. Evelyn folded her arms. "What's this about?" Michael stepped forward, reaching into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone, and unlocked the photo gallery. "I found something," he said softly. "In your drawer." Evelyn's smile dropped. Daniel turned to his son. "What did you find?" Michael held out the phone. "The photos that changed everything," Daniel took the phone and began to swipe through the photos. There were pictures of Evelyn's notebook. Names, numbers, hidden plans. Lines that read things like, "Once married file." "The life insurance claim. Wait 3 months. Move the money to my offshore account." Daniel's hand began to shake. "Evelyn, what is this?" She didn't speak. Her lips pressed together tightly. Her eyes darted between Daniel and Michael. I don't know what this is," she finally said. "This could be fake. Anyone could write this." Michael stepped forward. "You wrote it?" "I saw the notebook in your room. You hid it under scarves in the second drawer." Daniel looked at her. "Do you deny writing this?" Evelyn turned away. "It's just an old notebook. Notes from work. You're both overreacting." But her voice didn't sound calm anymore. It sounded cold. The eyes of the boy Michael stared at her with those same quiet, uneasy eyes. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. Just stood still. "You're not who you say you are," he whispered. Evelyn turned sharply. "Excuse me?" Michael took a breath. "You never loved my dad. You're just using him." Daniel looked shocked. "Michael." But Michael kept going. "You always asked me strange questions when we were alone. You tried to get into Dad's office drawer, and you never looked happy unless people were watching." Evelyn's face changed. Her smile had turned into something else now. Something dangerous. The door bursts open suddenly. The side room door flew open. Aunt Lizzie stood there, out of breath. "What's going on?" "People are getting worried." Daniel looked at her, then back at Evelyn. "We need a few more minutes." Evelyn's eyes were darting toward the exit door now. She was thinking, calculating. Michael noticed. "She's going to run," he said. Quietly, Daniel stepped in front of the door, blocking her way. "Sit down, Evelyn," he said. The mask starts to slip. Evelyn's voice changed completely. "Oh, please, Daniel," she snapped. "Oh, you're really going to believe a child over me? Your own son ruins your wedding, and you take his side?" "I believe the proof," Daniel said, holding up the phone. "And I believe in the way you're acting right now." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand what you're doing." Daniel's voice rose. "Then help me understand." But Evelyn didn't answer. She turned away, crossed her arms, and stared at the wall. Daniel pulled out his own phone. "Who are you calling?" she asked. 911, he said. "I'm going to let them figure this out." Michael's heart raced. He'd hoped his dad would believe him, but he didn't expect this. Evelyn rushed forward. "You can't call the police. This is a misunderstanding." Daniel had already pressed the button. The call connected. "This is Daniel Carter. I need to report something suspicious about my bride." "Yes, we're at St. Mary's Church." Evelyn stood frozen. Michael watched her carefully. The unspoken threat. Daniel ended the call. Evelyn spoke again. "You don't know what you've just done." Daniel frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly backed away and sat in the corner chair, quiet, like she was waiting or planning outside the room meanwhile. The church was full of whispers. Why did they leave the altar? Is the bride crying? Was that little boy holding a phone? A guest stepped outside to smoke and noticed something strange. A black SUV parked across the street. A man inside, sunglasses, staring at the church. He didn't blink back inside. Michael's voice. Daniel sat beside Michael. "Son, ... why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I tried," Michael said, "but you were happy. I didn't want to ruin it." Daniel looked down, ashamed. "I should have listened." Michael reached into his pocket and pulled out something. Elsa folded paper. "What's this?" Daniel asked. It was in the back of her notebook. A photo of someone I don't think you've met yet. Daniel opened it. Slowly, it was a picture of Evelyn, standing with a man, their arms around each other. Not old. Recent. The note under it read, "Everything is ready. He suspects nothing." Michael revealed secret photos of Evelyn's hidden notebook, exposing her true motives. Daniel called 911, but Evelyn didn't fight back. She just sat down and stayed silent. Outside the church, a black SUV appeared, with a man inside watching. Now, the truth is only beginning to unfold. A picture worth 1,000 fears. Daniel stared at the photo in his hand. Evelyn stood close beside a man, tall, dark hair, sunglasses. They were smiling, like a couple on vacation. But the note beneath it changed everything. "Everything is ready. He suspects nothing." Daniel looked up at Evelyn. "Who is this man?" She didn't answer. "Is he your brother? Friend, fiancé?" Still, nothing. Michael stepped closer. "He's not just someone you know. He's part of this." Daniel raised his voice slightly. "Answer me, Evelyn, or I'll show this photo to the police the moment they get here." Evelyn's eyes locked onto his. And then, oh. She finally spoke. A whisper so cold I did what I had to do. Evelyn said quietly. Her voice was different now, lower. Empty. Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" She leaned forward, slowly, and said just loud enough for both of them to hear. You were just a target. Michael's breath caught. Daniel stared at her. What did you say? He asked. Evelyn leaned even closer to Daniel and whispered, You're not the only one I've done this to. You're just the next one. Then she sat back with a calm, cruel smile. Daniel's world shakes Daniel. Took a step back. He looked at her like she was a stranger. All the sweet memories, her laughter, their dates, her caring words, they now felt like glass, shattering in his mind. Michael placed a hand on his father's arm. She's dangerous, Dad. I knew it. Daniel nodded slowly. You were right. Outside the church, the man moves across the street inside the black SUV. The man in sunglasses looked at his phone. He received a message. 911 called. Plan falling apart? Exit, he typed. Not yet. I'll handle it. He started the engine but didn't drive away. He was waiting for someone or something back in the church. Time is ticking inside the church. Guests were growing restless. Whispers became louder. Should we go? Why hasn't the wedding continued? Where is the bride? Aunt Lizzie stood near the side room door, worried. Then she noticed Michael peeking out. She walked over. Michael, is everything okay? Michael stepped outside and pulled her close. Aunt Lizzie, he whispered, call Officer Grant. Dad's friend? Tell him we need help. Now. Her eyes widened. What? Why? No time to explain, Michael said. Just do it. Don't tell anyone else. Lizzie saw the fear in his eyes and nodded quickly. She grabbed her phone and walked away quietly. Evelyn's true side shows back inside the side room. Evelyn crossed her legs and smiled again. You won't have enough proof, she said calmly. The police won't believe a notebook and a few pictures. Daniel clenched his fists. We'll see. Michael reached into his jacket again and pulled out a small voice recorder. He pressed play. A quiet voice began to play. Once married, file the life insurance claim, then move the funds. It was Evelyn's voice, crystal clear. Daniel's mouth dropped open. You recorded her, asked Michael. Michael nodded. Last week. She was talking on the phone in the kitchen. I put the recorder on the counter. Evelyn's smile disappears for the first time. Evelyn looked nervous. She stood up slowly. This is illegal, she said. You can't record someone without permission, Daniel replied. Try explaining that to the police. Look toward the door. Michael stepped in front of it. No more running, said. But Evelyn's eyes weren't on the door. They were on the window. A sudden move without warning. Evelyn rushed toward the window. Daniel yelled, No. Michael grabbed her arm. She shook him off and smashed the glass with a chair. Shards flew across the floor. Evelyn jumped halfway out the window, scraping her arm on the frame. Daniel caught her leg just in time. You're not going anywhere, he shouted. But Evelyn kicked hard and slipped free. Dropping onto the grass outside, she ran toward the parking lot. The man in the SUV, Evelyn, ran straight to the black SUV. The man opened the passenger door without saying a word. She jumped in. He started driving fast, but as the car turned around the corner, 2 police cars pulled in from the other side. Sirens, lights, Evelyn. Trapped, the black SUV skidded to a stop. Police blocked both exits. Evelyn and the man inside looked at each other. He pulled out something from under his seat. A badge. I told you not to mess it up, he said coldly. Evelyn's mouth opened, confused. What? You're FBI. He nodded. We've been watching you for months. Michael exposed Evelyn's dark secrets with a hidden voice recording. When confronted, Evelyn tried to escape through a church window. She fled into a black SUV but was soon cornered by the police. To her shock, the man driving the SUV revealed he was FBI. Now, the truth is starting to come out, but no one is ready for what's next. The crowd gathers. People rushed outside the church. Men in suits, women in high heels, children holding their parents' hands. All watched in shock as police surrounded the black SUV. 2 officers pointed their guns at the vehicle. Step out of the car. Hands where we can see them. One shouted. Inside, Evelyn looked pale. Her hands trembled as she glanced at the man in the driver's seat. You set me up, she whispered. He stared straight ahead. Get out now. The bride's final act. Tevelyn opened the door slowly. The crowd gasped as she stepped out in her white wedding dress, now torn at the side and stained with dirt from the escape. She raised her hands. But then, without warning, she dropped to her knees and screamed, He forced me. I'm not the mastermind. He made me do it. Gasps filled the air. Daniel, who had followed outside with Michael, stared in disbelief. Is she serious? He muttered. Michael narrowed his eyes. She's lying again. Yeah, the FBI agent speaks the... Man stepped out next. He showed his badge to the officers and the crowd. Special Agent Brooks, he said. FBI Financial Crimes Division? The woman is wanted for identity fraud, attempted insurance fraud, and conspiracy. We've been tracking her for months. Everyone was silent. Evelyn's voice shook. No, he was going to take the money too. He used me. Brooks didn't blink. We've got everything on tape. You've been under surveillance. Daniel's heart breaks. Daniel stood behind the police line, frozen in place. His hands were at his sides, his jaw locked. Michael stood. Next to him, looking up carefully. She lied to you, Michael said softly. Daniel finally knelt beside his son and hugged him tightly. I should have trusted you, he whispered. You saved me. Michael closed his eyes. I just wanted to keep you safe. The crowd murmurs around them. The guests whispered to one. Another? Did she plan to kill him? Why marry someone you're trying to steal from? Thank God for that boy. Aunt Lizzie stepped forward and hugged them both. I knew something felt off about her, she said. I never. Imagine this. Evelyn's past uncovered while Evelyn sat handcuffed in the police car. Agent Brooks spoke quietly to Daniel. She's been married before, he said. 3 times? Daniel's eyes widened. What? Brooks nodded. Each time, the husband either got into a mysterious accident or signed over large sums of money to her. Then she disappeared. Changed her name, Michael asked. So she's done this before? Brooks looked at the boy with respect. Yes, and thanks to you, she won't do it again. A cruel goodbye inside the back seat of the police car. Evelyn stared out the window. Her face was cold. No more tears. No more pretending. She looked at Daniel one last time and mouthed the words, This isn't over. Then the car door shut, and the police drove away. A wedding that never was back at the church. The decorations still hung. The music had stopped. The cake stood untouched. The guests slowly returned inside to gather their things. Some offered hugs. Others walked out in silence, unable to understand what had just happened. Daniel stood alone at the altar, staring at the spot where Evelyn had once stood. Michael walked up beside him. No ring today, huh? Right, the boy said. Daniel gave a sad smile. No, but I got something more important. What? He placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. The truth and a son I can trust. Evelyn was arrested after trying to escape. The FBI revealed her dark past, multiple marriages, fraud, and disappearances. Before being taken away, she looked Daniel in the eyes and mouthed chilling words. This isn't over. Now, as the guests leave and the wedding decorations remain untouched, Daniel must make a difficult choice. The church feels empty. The crowd was gone. The music had stopped. The once beautiful church, filled with laughter and cheer just an hour ago, now felt cold and silent. Daniel stood alone at the altar. Still dressed in his wedding suit, the golden ring he was supposed to place on Evelyn's finger sat in his hand. It no longer had meaning. He stared at it, then slowly closed his fingers around it. Behind him, the wedding planner whispered to a worker, Do we pack everything up now? Daniel heard her but didn't respond. Michael watches quietly. Michael stood a few rows back. Watching his father, he didn't speak. He didn't move. He knew his dad was hurting. Even though Evelyn was exposed, rested, and gone, the damage she left behind was still heavy. Daniel had trusted her, loved her, and now he was standing under the very lights where he almost said, Forever to someone who only saw him as a target. A lonely walk after a long pause. Daniel finally stepped down from the altar. He walked slowly. Like every step carried a heavy weight. Michael followed quietly behind him. Guests who were still lingering stepped aside, giving them space. Aunt Lizzie approached. "Daniel, are you okay?" He gave her a weak nod. "I will be, but not today." Then he kept walking. Outside the church, the sky had turned cloudy now. The sun was gone. The limo driver stood beside the white wedding car, confused. "Sir, should I drive you to somewhere?" Daniel shook his head. "No, we'll walk." The driver nodded and stepped aside. Daniel looked at his son. "Let's go home." The walk home, Daniel and Michael walked down the street, side by side. Neither of them spoke at first, but after a few minutes, Daniel broke the silence. "I almost married a criminal," he said softly. Michael looked up. "You didn't, though." Daniel gave a tired smile. "Because of you." They kept walking, passing familiar houses and shops. Daniel paused in front of a small bakery, the one where he and Evelyn had shared their first date. He stared at it for a long moment, then turned away. "I ignored the signs after a while," Daniel said. "I saw the red flags, but I ignored them. I thought I was just being afraid to love again." Michael didn't respond. He just listened. Daniel continued. "She always asked about my money. She said she wanted to make sure we had a future. I thought it was normal, but it wasn't." Michael stopped walking. "You were just trying to believe in someone." Daniel looked at his son. "In you. You didn't believe in her." Michael lowered his eyes. "No, I watched her. She changed when you weren't looking. I think she knew I was in the way. You protected me," Daniel knelt in front of Michael on the sidewalk. "You protected me," he said, voice trembling. "You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life." Michael looked at him with teary eyes. "You're my dad. You do the same." Daniel hugged him tightly. "I don't need a wife," Daniel whispered. "Just need my son." Back at home, they finally reached their house. The flowers Evelyn had chosen for the porch still hung outside. Daniel reached up and took them down, one by one. Inside, the dining table was still set with wedding napkins, candles, and a bottle of champagne. Daniel picked up the bottle and placed it in the trash. He took a deep breath. "Let's clean this place up," he said in the corner of the room while Michael helped clean. Something caught his eye near the bookshelf, a small envelope. It had Evelyn's handwriting on it. He picked it up and handed it to Daniel. "Dad?" Daniel opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a card. It said, "To my future husband, I've waited years for this day. I promise to always love you." Evelyn, but written lightly behind the printed words, was something strange. A second message, written in pencil: "If anything goes wrong, Plan B Storage Unit 77B, burn everything." Daniel's hands froze. After walking away from the broken wedding, Daniel and Michael returned home. While cleaning, they found an envelope with a hidden message from Evelyn. "If anything goes wrong, Plan B Storage Unit 77B, burn everything." Now Daniel must decide if he's ready to face whatever Evelyn left behind. The message no one was meant to see. Daniel stared at the pencil-written note behind the sweet message. Plan B Storage Unit, burn everything. The handwriting was Evelyn's. That much was clear. But the meaning behind the message was even darker than what the FBI had told them. "Burn everything?" Michael asked, reading over his dad's shoulder. Daniel's hands tightened around the paper. She was planning to destroy something important. He looked at Michael. "We have to find out what it is." But Michael already knew. Michael hesitated. He looked down at his backpack sitting near the kitchen chair. He walked over slowly, zipped it, and pulled something out. A file, thick, worn, labeled ER. Personal. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Michael placed the file on the table. "I took it from her dresser the night before the wedding." Daniel stared at his son. "Why didn't you show me this earlier?" "I wanted to," Michael said quietly, "but I was scared. I thought maybe I was wrong." Daniel opened the file. The hidden file inside were papers. Dozens of them, forged. IDs under different names. Eva Ryan, Emily Ross, Erica Reeds. 3 marriage certificates, all 2 men with large life insurance policies. Transfer receipts to an offshore account. A photo of Evelyn standing beside a man, same man from the black SUV. Daniel's heart pounded. She knew him, he whispered, long before the FBI came. But he said he was tracking her, Michael added. Daniel shook his head. Something's not right. What if he wasn't tracking her? What if they were working together? A dangerous connection. Daniel flipped through the papers faster now. There was a page titled, Emergency Exit, Storage 77, be it listed steps. Clean unit, move files, destroy copies. Disappear again. Michael leaned closer. So that's where the rest of her secrets are? Daniel nodded. She kept the worst stuff out of the house. She was ready to run. Should they go? Daniel stood up. We're going to that storage unit. Michael looked nervous. What if it's dangerous? Daniel looked at his son carefully. Then you stay here. I'll go. Michael shook his head. No, I want to come. Need to see how far she really went. Daniel didn't argue. He knew Michael was no longer just a child in this story. He was the reason it didn't end in disaster, the drive to the unknown. They rove in silence. The storage facility was 30 minutes outside town, near a quiet industrial area. The sky was turning orange as the sun began to set. They pulled up to the front gate. The sign read, Greenview Storage Units 1 to 100. Daniel entered. Evelyn's birthday as the code. The gate creaked open. Unit 77B. They drove slowly past rows of metal doors. Unit 77B sat in the far corner, a spiderweb. Daniel unlocked it with the spare key that had been taped inside the card. The door groaned open. Inside was a nightmare. Boxes of secrets. There were at least 10 cardboard boxes stacked high. On each one, scribbled in marker. Private, do not open. Daniel opened the first box. Inside were laptops, flash drives, dozens of passports and photos, hundreds of them. Each photo had a man in it, a different man each time. Some were smiling. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked terrified. Michael's blood runs cold. Michael picked up one photo. It was blurry. It was their house. In the photo, Evelyn stood outside smiling, but someone else had taken the photo from a distance. Like a spy, Michael whispered. She was being watched too. Daniel's face turned pale. What if Evelyn wasn't just running scams, he said. What if she was being used by someone else? Something moves. Suddenly, a soft thud echoed. Behind them, they turned fast. Nothing, but Michael was sure he saw movement behind the storage unit wall. Dad, he said, we're not alone. Daniel nodded. He reached into the box again and found something, wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it slowly. It was a gun, and under it a note. Only if he finds me first. Daniel's hand shook. Who was she afraid of? He whispered. Daniel and Michael discovered a hidden storage unit Evelyn had prepared in case her plans failed. Inside were boxes full of forged IDs, fake passports, stolen data, and a gun with a chilling note. Only if he finds me first. But just as they uncovered the truth, they sensed something where someone was watching them. The silence before the storm. Daniel slowly lowered the gun back into the box. Michael whispered, Dad, should we go? But Daniel didn't move. His eyes scanned the shadows. They stood inside the dim unit. No windows. Just one open door behind them, and the uneasy feeling they were not alone. Then another sound, a soft scrape like a shoe dragging on gravel. Michael's breath caught in his chest. A shadow outside. Daniel quickly stepped toward the door and peered outside. The rows of storage units stretched into the fading sunlight, empty, quiet, but then he saw it. A shadow moved past the far corner of the next row. Daniel quickly closed the storage unit door halfway. Michael, he said calmly, get behind the boxes. Michael obeyed. Daniel pulled out his phone and whispered, I'm calling the FBI. But the call didn't go through. No signal. Evelyn's backup plan. Maybe Evelyn told someone we'd come, Michael whispered. Daniel looked at the note again. Only if he finds me first. Who's he? He said under his breath. And why did she think he'd come here? Michael checked a second. Box while Daniel kept watch. Inside were letters, old, yellowed. Handwritten letters tied with a ribbon. Each envelope said, "To Evelyn Ross from EM." Michael opened one. It read, "They know your real name. You need to run. If I disappear, use Plan B. You were never just the wife. You were the bait." She was being used. Michael showed the letter to his father. Daniel's hands trembled as he read it. "Bait," he whispered. She wasn't the one running the scam. She was helping someone catch victims. "But what for?" Michael asked. "Money." Daniel shook his head. "This is bigger than fraud. This is control. Maybe blackmail or something. Worse." He looked at the next envelope, but this one wasn't addressed to Evelyn. It said, "If you're reading this, Evelyn is gone." The letter no one was meant to read. Daniel opened it slowly. The handwriting was rushed, almost panicked. She tried to leave. "I told her the rules. No one leaves. If she talks, we all fall. If you found this letter, it means she's either arrested or dead. Either way, the system is broken. Burn everything, and don't trust the FBI. Not all of them are clean." Michael stepped back. "What does that mean? Don't trust the FBI?" Daniel looked at the photo again, the one of Evelyn with the so-called FBI agent. He said he was an agent, but maybe he's not. "A dangerous truth," Daniel whispered. "Michael, we need to get out of here now." They grabbed the letters, the passport photos, and a flash drive labeled evidence. Daniel opened the storage unit door. The lot was still quiet. Too quiet. They moved fast toward the car, but just as Daniel reached the driver's side, he froze. A figure stood at the edge of the parking lot. It was him, the man from the SUV, the one who claimed to be Agent Brooks. He was not wearing a badge now, just black clothes and sunglasses. And a sharp smile. "The confrontation going somewhere?" the man called out calmly. Daniel turned and pushed Michael behind him. "We found your little secret," Daniel said firmly. "The letters, the photos. You were working with her." Man tilted his head. "So, you used her to lure wealthy targets? You had her marry them, collect information, and then vanish with the money?" Brooks smiled. "She wasn't smart. She started to care. She got soft. Tried to warn the boy." Michael's heart pounded. Daniel clenched his fists. "You're not FBI, no," the man said. "But I am exactly who you should be afraid of." He reaches for his pocket. The man moved his hand toward his coat. Daniel yelled, "Michael, run." Michael darted across the parking lot toward the car. Daniel stood between him and the man. But suddenly, sirens in the distance. Real sirens. Flashing lights turned the corner. 2 police cars and a black, unmarked van sped into the storage lot. The man froze. Daniel didn't move. Police jumped out. "Drop your weapon." The man raised his hands but smiled calmly. "You have no idea who I work for," he said. Daniel looked at the nearest officer. "You'd better find out before he disappears again." Daniel and Michael discovered Evelyn's storage unit, full of fake IDs, secret letters, and disturbing evidence. A man claiming to be FBI who was actually part of the scam showed up. But just before he could act, real police arrived and arrested him. But the real danger was only beginning. The man with too many secrets. That man stood between 2 police officers, cuffed, calm, still smiling. One of the detectives approached Daniel. "You know this guy?" Daniel nodded. He said his name was Agent Brooks, FBI. He lied. He worked with Evelyn. And probably others. The detective's eyes narrowed. "That explains the false ID he showed when we ran it. Is not in any federal database." Michael stood behind his father, clutching the flash drive they had found in the storage unit. The detective noticed it. "What's that?" Daniel answered. "Evidence of everything they were doing. The call that started it all." Black in the patrol car. The fake agent sat calmly. But he wasn't afraid. He leaned toward the officer in front. "You know this doesn't end here, right?" The officer ignored him. Meanwhile, Daniel and Michael sat inside their car. Michael looked at the flash drive. "Should we plug it in?" Daniel hesitated. Not yet. It might be tracked, or worse, infected with something. Then Daniel picked up his phone and dialed. 911. This is Daniel Carter. Need to report a case that goes beyond local police. I believe my former fiancée was part of a national fraud ring, and one of the men involved is now in custody. We've found evidence. Lots of it. Stay on the line. Sir, the 911 operator transferred the call to a federal division. A calm voice answered. Mr. Carter, you've done the right thing. Do not connect the flash drive to any computer. We'll send a secure team to retrieve it. Daniel nodded. Please hurry. I have a son with me. We know, the agent said softly. I thank you for stopping this before it went further. Daniel's hands shook slightly. I almost married that woman. She almost had everything, but she didn't, the voice replied. Because of you and your son? Evelyn in holding meanwhile, across town. Evelyn sat inside a jail cell. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She was staring at the wall, cold, quiet. Then a guard entered. Your lawyer's here. Evelyn didn't move. Did he bring the deal? Guard didn't answer, but the man behind him in expensive suit. Stranger walked in with a small silver briefcase. Evelyn Ross, he said. She smirked. It's been a while, the man nodded. You've caused trouble. I've told him not to follow me, she said. The man opened the briefcase and slid a document across the table. The deal signed this, he said. Give us the names. God. Walk in 2 years. Stay silent. You'll disappear forever. Evelyn smiled. You think I'm afraid of prison? He raised an eyebrow. Should be. Evelyn leaned forward. And if I tell you, do I get protection? Men didn't blink. Only until the trial. After that, you're on your own. Evelyn laughed, but deep inside, she knew. The people she worked with wouldn't let her live long enough to testify. The flash drive later, that night. 2 federal agents arrived at Daniel's house. They took the flash drive in a sealed bag. One of them whispered, if this has what we think it does, your family's not just a victim, you're a hero. Daniel didn't feel like a hero. He sat in silence after they left, staring at the empty couch Evelyn used to sit on. Michael came over with 2 mugs of tea. You okay, Dad? Daniel took the cup. I don't know, I feel like I loved a ghost. Michael replied softly. No, you loved a mask. One final letter the next morning. Daniel checked the mailbox. Inside was a small white envelope with no return address. He opened it carefully inside. It's a note written in elegant cursive. If you think this ends with me, you're wrong. There are more. Watch everyone. Trust no one, especially the ones who wear the badge. Daniel's hands shook. He looked up at the street. A black car slowly passed by. The driver didn't look at him, but Daniel knew. Someone was still watching. Daniel called 911 and handed over the flash drive filled with evidence. Evelyn, now in jail, was offered a deal in exchange for names, but she knew testifying could cost her life. Then Daniel received a letter with no return address. Trust no one, especially the ones who wear the badge. That night, a black car drove past his house slowly, and Daniel knew it wasn't over. A long, sleepless night. The house was dark. Michael was asleep upstairs. Daniel sat in the living room with the lights off, holding the letter in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. He didn't feel safe. Not after everything he had seen. Not after that black car, and certainly not after. Evelyn's warning. 12:03 a.m. A knock, suddenly a soft knock at the door. 3 times, not loud, not rushed, just calm. Daniel's body, tense. He walked quietly to the front door, barefoot, the bat in his hand. Who is it? He called out, not opening the door. No answer, just silence. A shadow on the porch. Daniel looked through the peephole. A man stood on the porch. Black coat, hat. His face was shadowed. He wasn't moving. Daniel spoke louder. What do you want? Still, no answer. Daniel turned on the porch light. The man did not flinch. Instead, he slowly raised his hand and held up a folded note. Then he placed it gently on the welcome mat. turned around, and walked away into the dark. Daniel opens the door. Daniel waited until the man was out of sight, then quickly opened the door. He looked around, nothing but the sound of wind in the trees. He picked up the note and brought it inside. He unfolded it carefully. Inside was a message. Written in the same neat handwriting as the previous letter, "He knows you found the flash drive. He's not coming for you. He's coming for the boy." Daniel's heart sank. He turned and ran upstairs. Michael was still there. He burst into Michael's room. Michael sat up quickly. "Dad, you okay?" Daniel asked, scanning the room. Michael nodded, eyes wide. "What's going on?" Walked over and hugged him tightly. "Nothing. Just, I need you to sleep in my room tonight." Michael didn't ask why. He just followed. The next morning, a visit from the real FBI, 8 a.m. 2 new agents knocked on the door. This time, Daniel asked for full ID. They showed it. Real badges. Real files. Agent Harper and Agent Lynn. They entered the home with calm, serious expressions. Agent Lynn said, "Mr. Carter, we analyzed the flash drive. It's bigger than we thought." Daniel sat down. "How big?" Agent Harper replied. "Nationwide. Dozens of victims. At least 6 fake marriages. Multiple financial crimes. But that's not the worst part." He pulled out a tablet and showed Daniel a photo. It was Evelyn. Years younger. Standing beside a different man, Daniel's blood ran cold. It was the same man who dropped the note last night. "Who is he?" "His name's never been confirmed." Agent Lynn explained. "Goes by many. In the underground, they call him the broker. He recruits women like Evelyn charming, smart, good liars, and uses them to trap people," Agent Harper added. "We've tried to catch him for 6 years. He always slips through." Daniel clenched his fists. "He was on my porch. He left this," handed them the note. Agent Lynn read it and exchanged a glance with her partner. "If he's coming for your son, we'll move you to a safe location today." Evelyn in danger back at the jail. Evelyn was in an interview room. She looked tired, pale, a bandage on her wrist. The lawyer across from her looked shaken. "You need to decide now," said testifier. "Take your chances." Evelyn leaned in. "Do you know who I was running from?" The lawyer hesitated. "The broker." She nodded slowly. "If I talk, he won't just come for me. He'll come for the boy." The lawyer looked confused. "What boy?" Evelyn stared at the wall. "Michael, Daniel's son. He knows too much. Daniel packs to leave Daniel, and Michael packed 2 bags. Agent." Lynn stayed near the window with her weapon ready. Michael looked up at his dad. "Where are we going?" "A place where they can't find us," Daniel said softly. Michael asked, "Will this ever be over?" Daniel didn't answer right away. Then finally he whispered, "Not until he is caught." Daniel received a midnight warning. He's coming for the boy. The mysterious man known as the broker, a dangerous puppet master who used Evelyn and others to trap victims, was now after Michael. The FBI confirmed his identity, but had no record of his real name. They advised Daniel to go into hiding immediately. Now the danger moves closer, and the family's escape begins. The house becomes a trap. The agents didn't wait. "Pack light," Agent Harper said. 2 bags. Essentials only. Daniel and Michael moved quickly through the house. The walls, once filled with warmth and pictures, now felt like glass, fragile, unsafe. Michael clutched his small red backpack. "Can I take the photo of Mom?" Daniel paused, looked at the photo of his late wife and nodded. "Of course. We take what matters. New name. A new name." Life Agent Lynn handed Daniel a sealed envelope. "Your new identities." Inside, new driver's license, new school registration papers for Michael, and new phone with no previous data. "You'll be Mark and Jason Ellis now. Stay quiet. No contact with anyone." Daniel looked at her. "How long?" "As long as it takes to bring him down," she said. "The secret safe house by late afternoon." They arrived at a safe house hidden deep in the forest outskirts, 2 hours away from the city. No neighbors, no cameras, no road signs. A wooden cabin stood silently. In the clearing, with thick trees all around. The only sound was the wind brushing the leaves. Agent Harper handed over a set of keys. Everything's ready. Groceries inside. Use the satellite phone if there's danger. Daniel nodded. Thank you. Before the agents left, Harper turned to Michael. You're a brave kid. Keep being smart. Michael gave a small smile. I just don't want my dad to get hurt. First night in the cabin that night, the fire crackled inside the cabin. Michael sat close to it, wrapped in a blanket. Watching the flames, Daniel sat beside him. Do you think he'll find us? Michael asked. Daniel looked into the fire. I hope not. We'll be ready if he does. Michael whispered, I miss normal life. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. So do I. Long pause. Then Michael asked, do you think Evelyn was ever going to hurt me? Daniel looked down. I don't know. But you were the one thing she couldn't lie to. That scared her. In the darker camera clicks far beyond the trees, a low click echoed in the shadows. A small hidden drone hovered silently in the air watching. The cabin, a green light blinked twice, and somewhere, miles away, a man in a dark room smiled. He whispered to himself, You can run, Daniel, but you'll never hide him from me. Evelyn's final choice, meanwhile, Evelyn sat in her prison cell, hands wrapped in bandages, eyes empty. A guard walked in. The agents say if you testify, they'll protect you. Evelyn turned her head slowly. He already knows. He always knows. The guard asked, What are you going to do? She stared at the floor. I'm going to give them everything. Names, photos, bank trails, all of it. Why now? 'Cause Evelyn said with a hollow voice. He doesn't get to take that boy. Back at the cabin, a warning at 3:12 a.m. The satellite phone rang once, just once. No caller ID. Daniel answered quickly. Hello. A man's voice replied, You should have stayed out of this. I always collect what's mine. Then the line went dead. Daniel stood still for a moment, then walked to the window. I pulled the curtain back. Nothing but trees, still. He felt that they were being watched. Daniel and Michael entered FBI protection and moved into a remote forest safe house. But a single drone had already found them. A chilling message came through the satellite phone. You should have stayed out of this. I always collect what's mine, and now something or someone is near. The forest at 3 a.m., the woods were silent. To silent, Daniel stood by the cabin window, staring out into the trees. He clutched a flashlight in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other. It was all he had. Michael was asleep on the couch, his blanket pulled up to his chin, his breathing steady but shallow. Daniel didn't dare close his eyes. That voice on the phone wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Footprints in the dirt by sunrise. Daniel stepped outside to check the perimeter. The grass was wet with morning dew, but near the back of the cabin, he saw them footprints, fresh, deep, larger than his own, and they led away from the cabin and disappeared into the woods. Daniel's heart began to race. They weren't there the day before. He knelt to touch one. Still damp, someone had been watching them. Up close, Michael wakes up inside. Michael woke to the sound of the door closing. Dad, he called, yawning. Daniel walked in quickly. Get dressed, quietly, no questions. Michael's eyes widened.
What's wrong?
Daniel whispered.
I
Think someone's already been here. The trap plan, Daniel grabbed a notebook and began drawing a quick sketch of the cabin in the woods. We'll make it look like we're here, he said. Lights on, blankets on the couch. But we're sleeping in the woods tonight watching them. Michael looked uncertain. That sounds scary. Daniel looked him in the eye. So is waiting to be hunted, setting the scene before sunset. They set everything up. A pillow stuffed under the couch blanket to look like Michael. TV on low volume with static. Back door slightly unlocked in purpose. Then under moonlight. They slipped outside and disappeared into the trees behind the cabin, hiding in the trees, Daniel. And Michael crouched low in the bushes. They had a pair of binoculars, a walkie-talkie. Into protein bars, they waited and waited. The wind howled once, then silence, then dash movement. A man in black hay figure approached the cabin from the east. Black coat, black gloves. No flashlight. He moved like he knew the layout. He stepped up to the back door, quietly pushed it open. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. He entered like it was his home. Michael's fear from the trees. Michael's hand gripped. His dad's tighter. That's him, he whispered. That's the broker. Daniel didn't reply. He was focused watching the man move from room to room, checking corners, avoiding lights. Then the man ripped the blanket off the couch. He paused, realized it was empty, and froze. He turned suddenly toward the window, almost like he sensed he was being watched. Daniel's decision? We need to move now, Daniel whispered, before he escapes. But just as he stood, a second figure stepped out from the trees nearby, not from the cabin, from the woods, right behind them, going somewhere. A second! Man, Daniel turned fast. Another mantle bald, wearing a headset, pointed a gun at them. He smiled. Didn't think we'd find you so easily, huh? Daniel raised his hands slowly, pulling Michael behind him. What do you want? Daniel asked. Not much, just the kid. He knows too much. Michael's voice trembled. Why me? The man shrugged. Because you saw what you shouldn't, and he never leaves loose ends. A trap within a trap butt before the man could move a red laser dot appeared on his chest. Then another voices from the trees shouted, Federal agents, drop your weapon! Daniel turned to see 4 agents emerging from the shadows. The bald man tried to run. Too late, a taser fired. He hit the ground. Hard. From the cabin, more agents swarmed in they had been watching all along. The broker escapes. Again but the first man, the one inside the cabin, is gone. He had slipped out the front door, vanished into the forest. Agent Lin ran up to Daniel. You did good. He took the bait. We just missed him. Daniel looked at the woods. He's not done. He'll come again. Agent Harper joined them. We're one step closer now. That second man he'll talk. But Daniel knew better. The broker never sent people he couldn't replace. Daniel and Michael set a trap in the woods. The broker entered their cabin but escaped again. A second man, part of the same criminal network, was captured. But the broker is still free. And Evelyn, now in custody, may be their last chance. Now, a hidden secret from her past may shift everything. Back inside the FBI facility, the captured man sat handcuffed in a small gray room. Sweat dripped down his face. Agent Lin slammed a folder on the table. Tell us where the broker is. The man laughed. You think I know? That's why he's still out there. Agent Harper leaned forward. And tell us something useful. The man hesitated, then said the woman. Evelyn. She has it. The thing you're all looking for. She hid it years ago. Agent Lin froze. What thing? He smirked. The black file. It's the black file later. The agents visited Evelyn in her prison cell. She looked calm, but her hands were trembling. Is he alive? She asked. The broker escaped, Agent Lin said. But we caught your second. He says you have something called the black file. Evelyn went still. I do, she whispered. But I never meant to use it. It was my insurance policy. What's in it? Everything, Evelyn said. Every scam, every name, every account. Every secret deal, including FBI agents he paid off. Agent Harper's eyes narrowed. Where is it? Evelyn's deal. Evelyn looked them in the eye. I'll give it to you, but only on one condition.
On what condition?
Daniel and the boy disappear. Forever. New names, new lives, and protection until the end of time. I don't care if you put me away for 20 years, but they live. Agent Lin exchanged a glance with Harper. That's not your decision, she said. Evelyn whispered, it is now. She slid a small piece of paper across the table. It read, The black file is in locker 18B Grandview. Train station. Daniel gets the call at the cabin. Daniel's phone rang. He answered quickly. It was Agent Lin. She gave it up. The black file. It's real. Daniel didn't speak. She made a deal for your safety. You and Michael will be given new papers. Again, this time for good. Michael listened in from across the room. She did it. For us, he asked softly. Daniel nodded slowly. Maybe this was her way of saying sorry. At the train station, FBI agents stormed Grandview Station. They found locker 18B and opened it. Inside was a small, heavy black briefcase with a red digital lock. It clicked open with Evelyn's birthday. Inside, thumb drives, bank records, GPS logs, a list of names with government titles, a folder labeled. The broker True Identity agent Harper stared at the file. He whispered, "We have him." Evelyn's farewell letter that night, a guard handed Daniel a final envelope. "It's from her," he said. Daniel opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter. Daniel, I didn't know what love was until I saw how you protected that boy. I tried to run from what I'd become, but I left pieces of it behind. This is the last one. Let it end here. Don't hate me. Just forget me. A new sunrise the next morning. Daniel and Michael stood on a mountain road in a different state. A black SUV pulled up. Agent Lynn stepped out. Ready? Daniel nodded. As ready as we'll ever be, Michael asked. Where are we going now? Agent Lynn smiled softly. Somewhere safe, somewhere quiet. You'll like it. They got in and drove away, leaving behind the forest, the cabin, and the past, but far away. In a dark room, a man watched the news. FBI releases massive corruption, filed dozens of arrests linked to international scam. The man turned off the screen. He poured a drink. He was calm, not angry, not scared. He opened a locked drawer and pulled out a photo. It was Evelyn, smiling and written on the back, "Still loyal. Until the end." Evelyn revealed the location of the black file, exposing dozens of names linked to the broker's criminal network, including corrupt officials. In return, she secured protection for Daniel and Michael. They were relocated to a quiet town, under new identities. But far away, the broker was still watching and waiting. Now father and son try to start over. But something about this peaceful town feels too perfect. A fresh start in Woodpine. Woodpine was a small town surrounded by forest. With wide sidewalks, clean air, and smiling neighbors, Daniel, now Mark Ellis, was given a job at a local hardware store. Michael, now Jason, enrolled in middle school, where no one knew his past. For the first time in months, they felt normal. Daniel even began to sleep through the night again, almost the friendly stranger one day after school. Michael was waiting outside the library when a kind-looking man sat next to him on the bench. He wore a baseball cap and carried a newspaper. "First week in town?" the man asked casually. Michael nodded. "Yeah, my dad and I just moved." The man smiled. "Quiet place. Safe, too." Then he stood up, dropped the newspaper in the trash, and walked away. Michael didn't think much of it until he noticed. The newspaper had no articles inside, just a photo of him and Daniel. Taken that morning, Michael's heart began to pound. He picked up the photo and shoved it in his backpack before running home. Daniel was chopping vegetables in the kitchen when Michael burst in. "Dad," he yelled, "someone's watching us." He dropped the photo on the table. Daniel stared at it speechless. The timestamp showed it was taken from inside the school fence. Was it the broker? Daniel called the FBI's emergency number. Agent Lynn picked up immediately. After he explained, she said, "We're tracking his digital activity. He's been quiet since the arrests, but that doesn't mean he's gone." Daniel asked, "Why Woodpine? You said it was safe." Agent Lynn hesitated. "It was, until now. The town isn't what it seems." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Sat on the porch watching the road. He noticed something strange. The same black sedan passed by for the fourth. Its time in 2 hours. And it wasn't a town car. It had no plates. He jotted down the time and direction. He didn't trust anyone, not anymore. A teacher with questions the next day. Michael's teacher, Ms. Rowan, asked him to stay after class. She smiled kindly. "You're adjusting well, Jason. I just wanted to ask about your last school." Michael hesitated. "We moved a lot." My dad says we don't talk about the past. Ms. Rowan nodded. That's understandable. Then she said something odd. You look very familiar. Almost like a boy I saw on a photo. On a file I wasn't supposed to open. Michael blinked. What file? She stood, grabbed her purse, and said gently, just tell your father to be careful who he trusts here. A hidden message that night. Daniel and Michael checked the newspaper again. Inside the folded corner was a handwritten message. One of the names Evelyn gave them lives here. Quiet, dangerous. Watch the librarian. Daniel stared at it. The librarian? He whispered. Why her? The library filed the next day. Daniel went to the library alone. He wandered until the librarian stepped into the back room. Then he slid behind the counter. Inside the desk drawer was a flash drive taped to the wood. He quickly pocketed it and left. Back at home, he used the FBI-issued laptop to open the drive. Inside, one folder, one video file. Labeled Woodpine Project Phase 3, a town built for control. Video played. A meeting room. A whiteboard. A voice speaking clearly. The broker's vision is simple. Build quiet towns. Populate them with people who owe us. Control movement. No one escapes without permission. Daniel froze. Woodpine was one of them. A town created by the network, a safe house but not for protection, for surveillance. Daniel discovered a flash drive at the library. On it was a secret recording revealing the shocking truth. Woodpine isn't a town for safety. It's part of the broker's surveillance network. Now Daniel, Nosy, and Michael were sent there for one reason. To be watched. They need to escape. But the town has eyes. And not everyone is who they claim to be. The secret is out. Daniel paced the living room with the flash drive still in his hand. Michael stood by the window, peeking through the curtains. You think the librarian left that drive for us? He asked Daniel. Nodded. Or someone working against them. But it's clear now we're not safe here. Michael's voice was shaking. So what do we do? Daniel looked at him with fire in his eyes. We leave. Tonight. Planning the escape, they couldn't use the phones. They couldn't trust the roads. Daniel opened an old ASD map and pointed. There's an old ranger station 15 miles east of here, he whispered. Abandoned. We can reach it on foot. We might get signal or help, Michael nodded. They packed only what they needed. Water, flashlight, emergency cash, Evelyn's old letter, a burner phone. Still powered off the flash drive, Daniel placed it all in a backpack and waited for the sun to set. Distractions and dangers. At 11:45 p.m. Daniel turned on every light in the house. He placed pillows under the blankets to fake their sleeping bodies. Michael opened the back window silently outside.
Out.
Other sounds, they slipped into the shadows and disappeared behind the house. But Daniel knew. Someone would notice soon. The chase begins at 12:19 a.m. 2 black cars pulled up outside the house. 2 men stepped out, both wearing town utility jackets. One peered through the window. There in bed, he muttered. The other checked the back door unlocked. He pushed it open. They entered. 5 seconds later, one of them ripped off the blanket and yelled, "They're gone." Running through the forest, Daniel and Michael raced through the woods. Branches cut their arms. Mud soaked their shoes, but they kept going behind them. Distant voices shouted. Flashlights began to sweep the trees. They're tracking us, Michael whispered. Daniel pointed. Follow the stream. It leads east. They moved faster. They couldn't stop. A light in the trees at 1:33 a.m. Michael spotted a light, dim, faint. A cabin, but not like the last one. This one was crumbling. Wood rotting. Roof caved. Still Daniel rushed forward. Inside, they found an old stove and a broken radio. Michael sat against the wall, out of breath. Did we lose them? Daniel looked out the window. I hope so. A stranger arrives minutes later, footsteps. Fast. Daniel grabbed a pipe from the wall. The door creaked, then opened. A woman stepped inside, hooded, breathing heavily. I was told to find you, she said quickly. The librarian sent me. Daniel didn't drop the pipe. Why? She pulled out a photo. It was a younger Evelyn, smiling, standing next to the woman. I worked with her. A long time ago, she knew this town would be used someday. Michael stepped forward. Who are you? She replied. The last friend she had. Her warning, there's more, the woman whispered. Woodpine was phase 3, but phase 4 is worse. What's phase 4? Daniel asked. She looked at them with urgency, turning the children into weapons, training them, using fear. Michael was going to be their first test. Daniel's hands clenched. Not my son. The woman pulled out a USB. Everything else you need is on this. Daniel and Michael escaped from Woodpine, the fake safe town controlled by the brokers network. Mysterious woman once close to Evelyn found them in the forest and handed over a USB drive. She warned them about phase 4, a plan to brainwash children into weapons. Michael was meant to be the first test. Now, the last files reveal what's truly at stake and who the broker really is. The cabin hideout. Daniel stared at the USB in his hand. It felt heavy, even though it weighed nothing. He plugged it into the secure laptop the woman had brought. Michael sat beside him, silent, waiting. Daniel clicked. The only file inside: final_recording.mp for the video, begins amansvoice.com. Clear, deep. If you're watching this, you already know too much, but I'll give you what you came for. The screen lit up with an image, a blurred face, altered voice, but something about the silhouette looked familiar. You think this is about money? About lies? No, this is about building control. And we start with the young. Evelyn appears suddenly. The video cuts to Evelyn, younger, sitting at a table, looking terrified. I didn't sign up for this, she says. A voice off-screen replies, you don't get to back out now. You know the plan. You recruited the boy's father. You followed orders, Evelyn whispers. But the boy, he's innocent, the voice says coldly. Not for long. Daniel's eyes fill with rage. Daniel stood up suddenly and punched the wall. Michael flinched. Daniel whispered, they were going to destroy your mind, like they destroyed hers. Michael looked down. She tried to stop them. Daniel nodded. And now we stop them. A code in the video. Near the end of the video, numbers appeared on the screen. Michael noticed them first. Pause it, Dad. Daniel hit the spacebar. Michael leaned closer. Those numbers coordinates? Daniel quickly searched the numbers. They pointed to an old government bunker, sealed for years, just outside the city. The broker's final hideout? Or something worse? A voice returned suddenly. The video unpaused on its own. The blurred man spoke again. You can run. You can hide. But once you see the truth, you belong to me. The screen went black. Then the final sentence appeared in red. See you soon, Michael. The woman speaks. The woman who helped them stepped forward. Her voice shook. I warned Evelyn not to get close to the boy. She didn't listen, but she gave her life for him. And now you have one last chance. Daniel looked at her. To do what? She replied, to end this. Michael's choice that night. Michael stared at the stars from the cabin roof. Daniel joined him, blanket over both their shoulders. Michael asked, do you think I'll ever feel safe again? Daniel put his arm around him. When this is over. Yes. Michael looked up. Then let's finish it. Daniel looked down at the coordinates. Tomorrow, they would go. Not to run, but to end it. Daniel and Michael uncovered the final USB recording revealing phase 4, plan to brainwash children. Like Michael. Coordinates hidden in the video led to a secret government bunker outside the city, once used, now buried and forgotten. The broker left a message. See you soon, Michael. Daniel and Michael made a choice. No more running. Now they head to Iron Hill for the final stand. The road to Iron Hill. The morning was foggy. Cold. Daniel drove in silence. Michael sat beside him. Holding the map, neither spoke much. They knew what was waiting at the end of the road. The GPS showed only blank forest, but the handwritten coordinates on the map led to a narrow dirt path, barely visible through the trees. This is it, Daniel, whispered Iron Hill. The hidden bunker. They parked the car behind thick bushes, hiking up the trail. Michael spotted it first. A rusted steel hatch beneath vines and moss. No markings. No. Just silence. Daniel pulled it open with both hands. The hinges screamed. A staircase led into darkness. Michael gripped his father's arm. Daniel looked at him. No turning back. They stepped inside. Inside the beast's lair, the air was damp, cold, echoing. Dim emergency lights flickered along. The tunnel, old wiring hung from the ceiling. At the end of the corridor was a door. Slightly open, Michael pushed it slowly. Inside, they found screens, files, a single black chair, and a wall of photographs. Photos of Michael every year since he was 5. School photos. Park visits. Daniel holding him. He gasped. They were. Watching us? Always. The voice returned, speaker turned on. That deep, calm voice echoed through the bunker. You came, brave. Stupid. Predictable. Daniel shouted, show yourself. A door opened on the far side. The broker stepped in. No. Mask. No shadows. Just a man in a black coat. Mid-50s. Sharp eyes. He looked like any normal person, and that made him even more dangerous. Face to face, you ruined lives. Daniel growled. The broker smiled. I built systems. You called them lies. You used Evelyn. She volunteered. Tried to break my son. The broker looked at Michael. I still can. Fear is the best teacher. Daniel stepped forward. Not anymore. The final move suddenly, Daniel pressed a button on his phone. A live stream began from the flash drive. The USB footage was now being broadcast online, sent to journalists, law enforcement, the FBI, all of it. The broker's face, the recordings, the entire Woodpine plan exposed. The broker's face twisted. You think this ends me? Daniel replied. It ends your silence. That's enough. The agents arrive outside. Black SUVs pulled up. Federal agents swarmed Iron Hill. The woman who helped them. Evelyn's last friend led the team. They stormed the bunker. The broker tried to escape through a side tunnel. He didn't make it. Tackled, cuffed, dragged out for the first time. Wasn't in control. He was caught. 1 month later, Daniel and Michael sat in a sunny park. New names. Safe. Real. This time. No secrets. No shadows. Michael ran across the grass, laughing. Daniel smiled for the first time in months. A letter arrived in the mail that morning. No name, just a short note. She saved you. Now live. That's all she ever wanted.